The hangar of Omega Drift's 19th sector smelled like burnt circuitry, stale coffee, and desperation. Jace Colburn preferred it that way. The acrid mixture kept most people away, which suited a man who'd spent the last 7 years trying to forget the faces of everyone he'd ever known. "Milo, pass me the quantum resonator," Jace muttered, his shoulders wedged uncomfortably beneath the belly of a third-rate cargo skimmer. The small maintenance bot whirred to life, its dented casing catching the dim blue light as it rolled toward the toolbox. Processing request. Quantum resonator identified. Query. Wouldn't a plasma cutter be more efficient for removing that flux coupler? The bot's voice modulator had been damaged years ago, leaving it stuck somewhere between a navigation system and an enthusiastic auctioneer. Not trying to remove it, trying to realign it. Jace's fingers, calloused and stained with engine grease, worked with precision that belied his disheveled appearance. His movements were economical, practiced, the muscle memory of a man who'd found purpose in fixing broken things after failing to fix a broken world. The hangar door suddenly slammed open with a metallic screech that echoed through the cavernous space. Jace didn't bother looking up. Probably another smuggler with a blown hyperdrive, hoping for a quick fix and a blind eye to whatever contraband filled their cargo hold. "I require immediate assistance." The voice was crisp, commanding, and decidedly female. Jace continued working. "You, under the ship. I'm speaking to you." Jace sighed, sliding out from beneath the skimmer with practiced ease. "Take a number. I'm—" The words died in his throat. Standing before him was not the usual riffraff of Omega Drift. Instead, a woman in a sleek silver flight suit studied him with piercing violet eyes. Her dark hair was pulled back in an elaborate series of braids that spoke of core world fashion and privilege. Behind her, through the hangar door, Jace glimpsed a spacecraft unlike any he'd seen before. Sleek, predatory lines of midnight blue metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Your ship looks fine," he said, wiping his hands on a rag that was probably making them dirtier. "It's not. The quantum entanglement drive has destabilized. I have approximately 17 minutes before catastrophic cascade failure." Jace blinked. "A what drive?" "Quantum entanglement. Military grade. Modified for civilian use." She spoke with clipped precision. "Every mechanic in this wretched bazaar refused to touch it. You're my last option." "Lady, I fix cargo haulers and smuggler rigs. I don't mess with experimental tech." "Alpha Priority Override Command. 7789 Vale Epsilon Tactical." She spoke the words like she expected them to mean something to him. Jace stared blankly. "That's supposed to impress me." For the first time, the woman looked genuinely surprised. "You're not connected." "To what?" "The lattice. The network. Any regulatory system." She studied him with newfound curiosity. "You're completely off-grid." "That's the idea." Jace stood, stretching his back. "Look, I can't help you with whatever fancy drive you've got. Try the military outpost in Sector 12. 14 minutes. Her expression hardened. "If this drive fails, the resulting quantum implosion will collapse this entire hangar and everything in a 2-kilometer radius." That got his attention. "You flew a ship with an unstable quantum bomb to a civilian port?" "I didn't have a choice." For a moment, something like fear flickered across her face. "I was pursued." Jace glanced at the magnificent ship again. Despite his better judgment, professional curiosity stirred within him. He'd never seen a quantum entanglement drive up close. "Fine," he sighed, grabbing his toolkit. "But when we both get atomized because I don't know what I'm doing. Remember, this was your idea." The woman's relief was palpable. "My name is Serenia Vale." "Didn't ask," Jace replied, already striding toward her ship. The interior of Serenia's vessel made the exterior seem positively mundane. Control surfaces of liquid crystal responded to thought as much as touch. The navigation system projected a three-dimensional map of the galaxy that shifted and realigned as Jace moved around it. Everything spoke of technology, at least a century beyond what should be available to civilians. "Military, huh?" Jace muttered as Serenia led him to the engine room. In a manner of speaking, the quantum drive was a thing of beauty, a suspended core of swirling energy contained within concentric rings of what appeared to be pure platinum. Unfortunately, the containment field was visibly fluctuating, ripples of blue-white energy occasionally arcing outward to scorch the surrounding housing. "That's not good," Jace observed. "Hence my urgency," Serenia replied dryly. Jace circled the drive, mind racing. He'd never worked on anything like this. But the underlying principles couldn't be that different from standard fusion containment. Quantum mechanics just added a few extra dimensions to worry about. "Milo," he called, and the small robot trundled into the engine room. "Run diagnostics on the containment field modulators." Affirmative. Scanning. Detecting phase variance in the tertiary quantum shell. Probability matrix. Destabilizing at 7% per minute. 9 minutes until critical, Serenia added helpfully. Jace ignored her, focusing instead on the intricate dance of energy before him. "We need to reset the phase variance and recalibrate the quantum shell." "That's impossible without a synchronization terminal," Serenia said. "And we don't have one." "Maybe you don't." Jace returned to the hangar and rummaged through a pile of what looked like scrap metal. He returned with a battered silver case. "Old Terran military tech. Universal quantum synchronizer. Never thought I'd use it again." Serenia's eyes widened. "That's classified equipment." "Was classified. War's been over a long time." Jace connected the device to the drive's control matrix. "Hold this," he instructed, handing Serenia a stabilization rod. Together, they worked in silent efficiency. Jace calling out instructions that Serenia followed without question. There was something unexpectedly natural about their cooperation, as if they'd worked together for years rather than minutes. "Quantum shell stabilizing," Jace muttered, as the energy fluctuations began to smooth out. "Milo, recalibration status?" 97.8% synchronized. Matrix restabilizing. Quantum probability approaching optimal parameters. The dangerous flares of energy gradually subsided, the drive core returning to a steady, controlled glow. "That should do it," Jace said, stepping back to admire their work. "Consider it a gesture of goodwill. Next time, maybe don't fly a quantum bomb into a civilian port." Serenia stared at him with an unreadable expression. "You fixed it." "That's what I do." "Without payment." Jace shrugged. "You said we were all going to die if I didn't. Seems like staying alive is payment enough." "A gesture of goodwill," she repeated his words slowly, as if they held some significance he didn't grasp. "With your own hands, you've stabilized the core of my vessel, asking nothing in return." "Don't make it weird, lady. It's fixed. You can go now." A small smile curved her lips. "Of course, thank you, Jace Colburn." He frowned. "I never told you my name." "Didn't you? I must have heard it elsewhere." Serenia's smile deepened mysteriously. "Until next time." Jace watched her leave, unable to shake the feeling that something significant had just happened. Something beyond saving a hangar full of people from quantum annihilation. "Query." Milo's mechanical voice interrupted his thoughts. "Why did you help the woman with the illegal military-grade spacecraft?" "Because I didn't want to die in a quantum implosion." "Analysis indicates you have exhibited suspicious levels of altruism. Recommendation: return to normal grumpy behavior immediately." Jace smiled despite himself. "Shut up, Milo." 3 days later, Jace had almost forgotten about the strange woman and her impossible ship. Almost, but not quite. The memory of that advanced technology kept him awake at night, fingers itching to understand how it all worked. He was elbow-deep in the guts of a temperamental atmospheric regulator, when the hangar doors slid open again. This time, however, it wasn't just Serenia Vale who entered. She was accompanied by 6 individuals in formal attire, so rigid it might have been armor. Behind them came a floating platform carrying what appeared to be stacks of legal documents. "Jace Colburn," Serenia announced, her voice carrying an edge of formality it hadn't possessed before. "I have returned, as promised." Jace straightened, wiping grease from his hands. "I don't recall any promises being made." "Nevertheless," she gestured, and one of her companions, a thin man with a monocular implant, stepped forward with a datapad. "Mr. Colburn," the man intoned, "I am Juridical Representative Tavish, acting on behalf of the Vale Consortium. I am here to formalize the binding agreement initiated 3 standard days ago between yourself and Serenia Vale, Sovereign Administrator of the Vale Holdings and Custodian of the Primary Vault." Jace stared blankly. "What binding agreement?" Serenia stepped forward, something like amusement dancing in her violet eyes. "You fixed my ship, under conditions of extreme danger, without requesting payment, and you said, verbatim, consider it a gesture of goodwill." "So?" "So," Tavish continued, "under the ancient royal covenant of the Technical Accord, you have engaged in the first rite of bonding with the last heir of the Vale bloodline." Jace looked between them. "The what of the who now?" "You have, in accordance with laws older than this station," Serenia said with alarming serenity, "initiated an engagement ritual with me. We are now legally betrothed." There was a long moment of silence, broken only by Milo's electronic whirring as the bot processed this information. Calculating probability of misunderstanding, error, recalculating. Conclusion: human mating rituals remain incomprehensible. "This is a joke," Jace finally managed. "You're joking." "The Vale Consortium does not engage in humor regarding dynastic matters," Tavish replied stiffly. "I don't even know you," Jace protested, addressing Serenia directly. "And I definitely didn't propose marriage by fixing your ship." "Not marriage, betrothal," Serenia corrected. "The completion of the bond requires several more rituals, but the first and most important step has been taken." "This is insane. I'm not bound by whatever ancient customs you follow." "That would be true," Tavish interjected, "except that you utilize Terran military equipment to perform the repair. Equipment governed by the Armistice Treaty of 2879, which explicitly recognizes the Technical Accord as binding for all military personnel." "I'm not military anymore," Jace growled. "Once inducted, always subject," Tavish replied smoothly. "Section 47, paragraph 12 of the treaty. No Terran soldier ever truly leaves service." Jace felt a headache building behind his eyes. "Listen, I appreciate whatever game you're playing, but I'm not interested in—" "It's not a game, Mr. Colburn," Serenia interrupted, her expression suddenly serious. "And whether you believe it or not, this betrothal may have saved your life." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," she said, stepping closer, "that certain parties became very interested in you the moment you touched my ship. Parties who would normally have you disappeared without a second thought. But now," she smiled thinly, "now, you're protected by the full legal and financial might of the Vale Consortium, the wealthiest and most powerful corporate entity in 3 spiral arms." "Protected from what?" "From them." Serenia nodded toward the hangar entrance, where a group of black uniformed individuals had appeared. They moved with the mechanical precision of people who had surrendered individual thought to a collective purpose. "The Apex Lattice," Tavish murmured. "Right on schedule." The leader of the newcomers approached. His face was bland, forgettable, as if specifically designed to leave no impression. "Serenia Vale, you have accessed restricted technology without authorization. The individual known as Jace Colburn has been flagged for information extraction. Please stand aside." I think not, Serenia replied coolly. Tavish? The documentation? The thin man produced a holographic display that expanded to fill the space between them and the Lattice agents. It showed complex legal text that scrolled too quickly to read. As you can see, Tavish explained with evident satisfaction, Mr. Colburn is now legally bound to Sovereign Administrator Vale under the Technical Accord, recognized by all major governance systems including your own Lattice protocols. Section 223 Alpha clearly prohibits information extraction from bonded partners without dual consent. The leader's expression didn't change, but something in his posture suggested frustration. This is an irregular application of an obsolete protocol. And yet, Serenia smiled, completely valid under current law. For a moment, tension crackled between the two groups. Jace found himself reaching instinctively for a weapon he no longer carried. Old combat instincts surging to the surface. Finally, the Lattice leader inclined his head fractionally. This matter will be reviewed by higher authority. Do not leave Omega Drift. With that, he and his companions turned and exited with the same eerie synchronization with which they had arrived. As soon as they were gone, Jace rounded on Serenia. What the hell was that? Who are you really? And what have you gotten me into? Serenia's composed facade faltered slightly. I apologize for the deception, but I needed a way to protect you. From what, the creepy mind police? The Apex Lattice is far more than police, she said grimly. They control information flow throughout the galaxy. They decide what history is remembered, what technology is permitted, what thoughts are allowed. And they want you because I can access something they've been hiding for centuries. She hesitated, then added, and now, because of our connection, so can you. There is no connection, Jace insisted. I fixed your ship, that's it. Nevertheless, in the eyes of the law, and more importantly, in the eyes of the Vault's security protocols, we are now connected. Serenia's expression softened. I know this is overwhelming, but I need your help, Jace Colburn, and whether you realize it or not, you need mine. Recommendation, Milo interjected. Accept the engagement, statistically. This is the most interesting thing that has happened in this hangar in 7 years. Not helping, Milo, Jace growled. Serenia smiled at the robot. Your assistant has wisdom. He has a broken voice modulator and questionable judgment, Jace countered. Look, Ms. Vale. Serenia, please. We are betrothed, after all. Jace ignored the comment. What exactly do you want from me? Right now, to come with me, before the Lattice returns with override protocols. Her expression grew urgent. They won't be bound by legal niceties a second time. Jace looked around his hangar, at the half-repaired ships, the scattered tools, the small living quarters he'd carved out for himself in the back. It wasn't much, but it had been his sanctuary for 7 years. If I say no, then I leave alone, and the Lattice takes you for questioning. Serenia's voice was gentle, but firm. Their questioning techniques don't leave much of a mind intact. And if I say yes, then you embark on an adventure that will likely end in one of two ways. We change the course of galactic history, or we die trying. Those are terrible options. Perhaps. But they're more interesting than replacing flux couplers for the rest of your life. Jace stared at her for a long moment. There was something in her violet eyes, a determination, a purpose, that stirred something long dormant within him. 7 years ago, he'd walked away from purpose, from responsibility, from anything that mattered. Maybe it was time to matter again. Milo, he said finally, pack the essentials. We're taking a trip. Affirmative, packing essentials. Query, does this qualify as a honeymoon? It does not, Jace snapped, then turned to Serenia. I want it noted that I'm doing this under protest. Serenia's smile was radiant. Duly noted, Mr. Colburn. Welcome to the family. Serenya's personal vessel, not the one Jace had repaired, but an even more impressive craft hidden in a private docking bay, departed Omega Drift with the smooth acceleration of technology beyond standard market availability. Jace sat in the co-pilot's chair, watching as the chaotic sprawl of the space bazaar receded behind them. "Where exactly are we going?" he asked, as Serenya's fingers danced across the navigation controls. "Somewhere safe, at least temporarily." She engaged the quantum drive, and the stars outside elongated into streaks of light. "I have a facility on Helios Minor. The lattice presence there is minimal." "And then what? You still haven't explained what you need me for." Serenya was silent for a moment, seemingly focused on the navigation. Finally, she sighed. "What do you know about the information wars?" Jace frowned. "Standard history. Earth and the colonies fought over data access rights. Earth lost. The Unified Governance Accord established information hierarchies to prevent future conflicts." "That's the approved version," Serenya said quietly. "The reality was rather different." "How would you know? That was over a century ago. The Vale family has been the custodian of the primary data vault for 300 years. She turned to face him fully. "We were entrusted with maintaining the true historical record. Every piece of information too dangerous or disruptive to release to the public." "So you're glorified librarians?" Her lips twitched. "In a sense. Except our library contains secrets that could destabilize governments, trigger revolutions, or render entire technologies obsolete." "And you want to, release all this information?" "Not indiscriminately. No. But the lattice has been systematically altering the vault's contents for decades, erasing inconvenient truths, manufacturing consent through carefully curated information releases." Serenya's expression hardened. "They're not maintaining stability. They're enforcing stagnation, controlling thought itself." Jace leaned back in his chair. "So you're a revolutionary?" "I prefer information freedom advocate," she replied with a small smile. "But yes, I suppose I am." "And what does this have to do with me? Or our supposed betrothal?" "The vault's security system was designed with multiple redundancies. The most critical information can only be accessed by a Vale heir and their bonded partner." She held his gaze steadily. "The system requires two individuals with complementary access patterns. The technical accord ritual you inadvertently performed created exactly the kind of biometric and legal bond the vault will recognize." "Convenient," Jace remarked dryly. "I admit I may have nudged circumstances in that direction." Serenya had the grace to look slightly abashed. "But the bond had to be genuine to work. You truly did help me without expectation of reward. That sincerity is what the vault will respond to." Before Jace could respond, the ship's alert system chimed urgently. "We're being pursued," Serenya announced, scanning the tactical display. "Lattice enforcement vessel, heavy cruiser class." "They're not wasting any time," Jace observed, automatically checking the weapon systems. Old habits died hard. "They can't afford to. If we reach the vault—" A violent impact rocked the ship, cutting off her words. The lighting flickered, and warning indicators flashed across multiple displays. "Tractor beam," Jace noted grimly. "Military grade." "They shouldn't have that technology," Serenya muttered, fingers flying across the controls. "It's restricted to—" Another impact. Harder this time. The ship's engines screamed in protest as they fought against the invisible grip pulling them backward. "Can you break free?" Jace asked, bracing himself as the ship shuddered. "Not conventionally. No." Serenya's expression was tense but focused. "But I have a few unconventional options." She accessed a secured panel beneath the main console, revealing a set of controls Jace didn't recognize. "Emergency protocols," she explained. "Brace yourself." Serenya pressed a sequence of commands, and the ship seemed to fold in on itself. For a sickening moment, Jace felt as if he were being turned inside out, his very molecules protesting as space distorted around them. Then, suddenly, they were elsewhere. The pursuing cruiser was gone, replaced by the serene blue-green curve of a planet. "What?" Jace swallowed hard, fighting a wave of nausea. "What was that?" "Quantum displacement." Serenia looked slightly pale herself. "A one-time emergency measure. It reconfigures our quantum signature, making us essentially invisible to conventional tracking." "That's impossible technology." "Most impossible things are merely improbable," she replied, checking the ship's systems. "And expensive. Very, very expensive." Jay studied the planet below. "Is that Helios Minor?" "No. This is Terulian, a neutral world with minimal lattice influence." Serenia frowned at the readings. "Our quantum displacement damaged the primary drive. We'll need to land for repairs." "Damaged how badly?" "We're not exploding, if that's your concern," she said with a wry smile. "But we won't be making any more interstellar jumps until it's fixed." As they began their descent, Jace found himself studying Serenia's profile. Despite the danger they'd just escaped, she maintained a composed demeanor that spoke of someone accustomed to crisis. Yet beneath that composure, he sensed something else, a burning determination that reminded him of soldiers he'd known, people with causes they were willing to die for. "Why me?" he asked suddenly. "There must be thousands of mechanics in the galaxy who could have fixed your ship. Why land at my hangar?" Serenia was silent for a long moment as she guided the ship through the upper atmosphere. "Because you're off the grid," she finally said. "No neural implants, no lattice connection. Your mind is untouched." "Meaning?" "Meaning the vault requires a partner who hasn't been compromised. Someone whose thoughts are entirely their own." She glanced at him. "Do you know how rare that is these days? Most citizens have been subtly influenced through lattice information feeds for their entire lives." "And you think I haven't?" "I know you haven't. Your military record indicates you had your neural implants surgically removed after the Proxima conflict. You've been living on the fringes ever since, deliberately avoiding lattice influence." Her expression softened. "I've been looking for someone like you for a very long time. Jace Colburn." The implications of her words were still sinking in when the ship's proximity alert blared. Serenia's attention snapped back to the controls. "Atmospheric interceptors," she announced tensely. "They're hailing us." "I thought you said this was a neutral world." "It is. These aren't lattice vessels." She opened the communication channel. "Terulian Patrol. This is Seraphic 1 requesting landing clearance for emergency repairs." A gruff voice responded immediately. "Seraphic 1. You are entering restricted airspace during a judicial lockdown. State your business and prepare for escort to holding Facility 7. Serenia muted the channel. "Judicial lockdown? That's not normal procedure." "Could the lattice have gotten here before us somehow?" Jace asked. "Impossible. The quantum displacement—" She stopped, eyes widening. "Unless they anticipated this move. Unless they've been planning for this contingency for longer than I realized." The comm crackled again. "Seraphic 1. Acknowledge immediately, or we will open fire." Serenia hesitated, then unmuted the channel. "Acknowledged. Terulian Patrol. We submit to escort." She cut the communication and turned to Jace, her expression grim. "I think we're about to be arrested." "For what?" "That," she said with surprising calm, "is exactly what I intend to find out." Holding Facility 7 proved to be a massive structure carved into the side of a mountain, its entrance a gaping maw in the otherwise pristine landscape. Their ship was guided into a cavernous hangar where armed guards in Terulian uniforms, gray and blue, with insignia Jace didn't recognize, surrounded them immediately. "Exit your vessel with hands visible," ordered a stern-faced woman who appeared to be in charge. Serenia and Jace complied, descending the ship's ramp slowly. Milo attempted to follow, but was stopped by Jace's quick hand signal. "Stay with the ship," he murmured. "Run diagnostics." "Affirmative. Running diagnostics." Observation: humans have poor vacation planning skills. The guard commander approached, scanner in hand. "Identities?" "Serenia Vale, Sovereign Administrator of the Vale Consortium," Serenia replied with calm authority. "And this is Jace Colburn, my security consultant." The commander's eyebrows rose slightly at the Vale name, but she continued her scan. When the device passed over Jace, it emitted a high-pitched whine. "Terran military implant residuals," the commander noted. "Deactivated but present. Interesting." She lowered the scanner. "I am Commander Liss. You will follow me." They were led through a series of security checkpoints, each more stringent than the last. Jace noted the facility's layout, marking potential exit routes out of habit. It was a military installation disguised as a civilian detention center, the difference subtle but unmistakable to trained eyes. Finally, they were shown into a stark room containing only a table and 3 chairs. The walls were a dull gray metal that Jace recognized as signal-dampening alloy. Whatever happened in this room stayed in this room. "Wait here," Commander Liss instructed, then left them alone. "Security consultant," Jace asked, once the door had sealed behind her. "Would you have preferred betrothed?" Serenia replied with a raised eyebrow. "I would have preferred honesty," says the man who introduced his robot as a navigation system to avoid paying its licensing fees. Jace blinked. "How did you—" The door slid open again, interrupting his question. A tall, thin man entered, his formal robes marking him as someone of significant authority. A silver band encircled his head, embedded with what appeared to be processing nodes. "Sovereign Administrator Vale," the man intoned, his voice curiously flat. "I am Adjudicator Karoan of the Terulian Judicial Assembly. You stand accused of data terrorism, unauthorized access to restricted information networks, and violation of the Information Containment Act." Serenia straightened. "Those are Lattice charges, not Terulian. This world is neutral territory. The situation has evolved," Karoan replied. "Terulia has entered into a mutual assistance agreement with the Lattice Governance Authority." "As of when?" Serenia demanded. "As of 4 standard hours ago." Jace and Serenia exchanged glances. The timing was too precise to be coincidence. "I demand to see documentation of this agreement," Serenia said firmly. "Under Intergalactic Charter Article 7, all governmental transitions must be publicly documented." "The documentation is being processed," Karoan replied smoothly. "In the meantime, you will be detained pending transfer to a Lattice facility." "On what grounds?" Jace interjected. "You can't hold us without formal charges under recognized jurisdiction." Karoan's gaze shifted to him, empty and cold. "You are not being charged, Jace Colburn. You are being requisitioned as a person of interest for information extraction." "The hell I am," Jace growled. "Adjudicator Karoan," Serenia cut in, her voice taking on a formal cadence. "I invoke Article 937 of the Technical Accord. Jace Colburn is my bonded partner under ancient right, and therefore protected from unilateral extraction procedures." Karoan's expression didn't change, but a slight tremor ran through the processing nodes on his headband. "That claim requires verification." "By all means, verify it," Serenia replied with sudden confidence. "You'll find the bonding was properly registered across all legal networks the moment it occurred." "Even if that's true," Karoan said after a pause, "it doesn't protect you from detention." "No," Serenia agreed. "But it does require that we be detained together, with full access to legal counsel and communication with the Vale Consortium." Another tremor in the processing nodes. Jace realized with sudden clarity that Karoan wasn't simply wearing technology. He was integrated with it. The adjudicator was receiving real-time instructions or information through that headband. "Your request will be considered," Karoan finally said. "Until then, You will be escorted to separate holding cells. That would violate at least 17 interstellar conventions. Serenia countered immediately. Do you really want the combined legal teams of the Veil Consortium descending on Terulia? For the first time, something like uncertainty flickered across Karoan's face. Wait here, he ordered, then left the room abruptly. As soon as they were alone, Jace turned to Serenia. What just happened? Politics, she replied, her expression grim. The lattice is moving faster than I anticipated. They've co-opted Terulian leadership. Through that headband thing? Serenia nodded. Neural interface technology? Officially, it's just for information access. In reality, mind control, Jace finished. Like the agents we saw at Omega Drift. Not quite so direct, but similar in principle. Subtle influence rather than outright control. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. We need to escape before they transfer us off-world. I noticed at least 12 guards, automated security systems, and what looked like sonic deterrent fields. Jace replied quietly. Not exactly an easy breakout. Who said anything about breaking out? Serenia's lips curved into a smile that was equal parts confidence and mischief. I'm thinking we should break in instead. Into what? The facility's central data core. If Terulia has truly aligned with the lattice, there will be transmission records. Evidence we can use. Jace stared at her. You want to hack a secure facility while we're being detained inside it? Precisely. They won't expect us to go deeper rather than trying to escape. Her violet eyes gleamed with determination. Besides, we need access to a quantum transmitter to contact my allies. This facility should have one. Before Jace could respond, the door slid open again. This time, it wasn't Karoan who entered, but a squad of armed guards led by Commander Liss. By order of Adjudicator Karoan, you are both to be transferred to high-security detention immediately, Liss announced. There was something odd about her tone, a reluctance that hadn't been present before. As the guards moved to flank them, Serenia caught Jace's eye and gave an almost imperceptible nod. Whatever plan she had in mind, it was apparently about to begin. The guards escorted them through a series of increasingly secure checkpoints. Jace noted that they were moving deeper into the facility, not toward the perimeter, as would be expected for a transfer to another location. Something wasn't right. Commander, Serenia said casually as they walked, I assume our ship is being properly maintained during our detention? Standard protocols are being observed, Liss replied stiffly. Including the Class 7 quantum resonance stabilizer? It requires specific harmonic calibration every 6 hours to prevent decay. Commander Liss faltered slightly. I'm not familiar with that requirement. It's quite critical, Serenia continued smoothly. A destabilized quantum resonator can trigger a cascade failure similar to what happened on Proxima Station. At the mention of Proxima, Jace tensed involuntarily. The destruction of that station had been the turning point of the war. Thousands of lives lost in an instant when the quantum core destabilized. Liss's pace slowed. What are you implying, Administrator Vale? Nothing at all, Serenia replied innocently. I'm simply concerned about proper maintenance protocols, especially given the sensitive nature of this facility's operations. Jace recognized the strategy immediately. Create doubt. Instill fear. It was psychological warfare 101. They had reached a massive set of doors marked with security warnings in multiple languages. Beyond lay what appeared to be a detention block, unlike any Jace had seen before. Individual cells, separated by energy fields, rather than physical barriers. These are information extraction chambers, Serenia whispered, suddenly tense. Not detention cells. Jace studied the setup with growing unease. Each cell contained a chair with restraints and a complex apparatus suspended above it. Neural probes designed to forcibly extract information directly from a subject's mind. Commander, one of the guards called out. We have updated orders from the Adjudicator. The prisoners are to be separated immediately for parallel processing. Liz frowned. I received no such order. It came through the priority channel just now, the guard insisted, tapping his communication device. As Liz moved to verify the order, Serenia leaned closer to Jace. When I move, be ready, she murmured. Ready for what? Chaos. Before he could ask for clarification, Serenia suddenly clutched her abdomen and collapsed to the floor with a convincing cry of pain. Medical emergency, she gasped. Quantum radiation poisoning from the ship's drive core. The guards hesitated, looking to Commander Liss for direction. It's highly contagious, Serenia continued, her voice strained. The particles can jump from host to host through proximity alone. It was an absurd claim. Quantum radiation didn't work that way. But the guards began to back away nonetheless, their expressions uncertain. This is a deception. The guard who had mentioned the new orders stated flatly, quantum radiation does not transfer between organisms. Not normally, no. Serenia agreed, still doubled over. Unless the particles have been specially modified for weapons application, which is exactly what the Veil Consortium has been researching. The claim was outlandish, but delivered with such conviction that even Jace almost believed it. Commander Liss's expression wavered between skepticism and concern. She's lying, the guard insisted, stepping forward. This is a standard evasion tactic. As he reached for Serenia, she moved with startling speed. Her hand shot out, grasping the guard's wrist and twisting it to expose the neural interface band beneath his uniform cuff. With her other hand, she pressed something small and metallic against the interface. The guard froze, his body going rigid before collapsing to the floor. Neural disruptor, Serenia explained, already moving to the next guard who was raising his weapon. Non-lethal, but effective. Jace didn't wait for further explanation. Years of combat training took over as he launched himself at the nearest guard, delivering a precise strike to the neural interface visible at the base of the man's skull. The guard dropped instantly. Chaos erupted as the remaining guards attempted to subdue them. Jace moved with practiced efficiency, targeting neural interfaces rather than trying to overpower his opponents directly. Beside him, Serenia fought with surprising skill for someone he'd assumed was primarily an administrator. Commander Liss, rather than joining the fray, had backed against the wall, her expression conflicted. When Serenia approached her, disruptor in hand, Liss raised her palms in a gesture of surrender. I won't fight you, she said quietly. Something's wrong here. These orders, this facility, it's not Terulian standard procedure. Serenia studied her for a moment, then nodded. The neural interface, remove it. Liss hesitated, then reached up to detach the small device at her temple. As it came free, she blinked rapidly, as if awakening from a dream. They've been influencing us, she murmured. All of us with command clearance. The lattice doesn't leave anything to chance, Serenia replied grimly. Will you help us? What do you need? Access to the central data core, and our ship. Liss glanced at the unconscious guards, then at the extraction chambers beyond the doors. Her jaw tightened. Follow me. But hurry. The system will detect the disruption soon. She led them through a service corridor that bypassed the main security checkpoints. As they moved deeper into the facility, Jace noticed that the architecture changed, became older, more utilitarian. This section predates the current facility, Liss explained, as they descended a narrow stairwell. It was built during the original colonization, before the information wars. Before information became a weapon, Serenia murmured. Before it became the only weapon that mattered, Liss corrected. She stopped before an unmarked door and pressed her palm against a worn scanner. This will take you to the auxiliary data core. It's not as comprehensive as the main system, but it's also not as heavily monitored. Thank you, Serenia said. What about our ship? Hangar security will be on high alert by now. Your best chance is to create a diversion. Liz removed her command insignia and handed it to Jace. This will get you through the first 2 security layers of the hangar. Beyond that, you're on your own. You're risking a lot to help us, Jace observed. Liz's expression hardened. I swore an oath to Terulia, not to whatever is controlling our leadership now. Go. I'll delay the alarm as long as I can. The auxiliary data core was a cramped room, filled with outdated equipment that hummed with the effort of keeping pace with modern processing demands. Serenia moved immediately to a central terminal and began working with the confidence of someone intimately familiar with data systems. How long will this take? Jace asked, keeping watch at the door. Depends on what we find, Serenia replied, her fingers dancing across the interface. I need proof of the Lattice's interference in Terulian governance, and, if we're lucky, information about their current operations. And if we're not lucky, then we'll have risked our lives for nothing. She glanced up briefly. Having second thoughts about our engagement? Despite the tension of the situation, Jace found himself smiling. I've had second, third, and fourth thoughts since the moment you mentioned it. Yet here you are, she noted, returning her attention to the terminal. Here I am, he agreed quietly. Something about this woman, her determination, her intelligence, her unyielding resolve, had awakened a part of him he'd thought long dead, the part that cared about more than just survival. I've found something, Serenia announced suddenly. Transmission logs between the adjudicator's office and something called the Apex node. The what? The command center of the Lattice network. These are high-level communications, policy directives, enforcement protocols. Her expression grew increasingly troubled as she read. Jace, this is worse than I thought. They're not just controlling information flow anymore. They're actively rewriting historical data across all connected systems. Rewriting how? Erasing conflicts, failed revolutions, entire civilizations that challenged Lattice control. She continued scrolling through the data. According to this, the Proxima conflict, the war you fought in, never happened the way we remember it. Jace stiffened. What do you mean? The official records now state that Proxima Station was destroyed by Terran extremists, not by a quantum core malfunction during a Lattice operation. She looked up at him, eyes wide. They're changing the past, Jace, not just controlling the present. Before he could respond, an alarm began to blare throughout the facility. We're out of time, Jace said tensely. Can you download that data? Already doing it. Serenia pressed a small device against the terminal. But we need more. We need access to the vault to truly expose them. One problem at a time, Jace urged. First, we need to get to our ship. Serenia nodded, pocketing the data device as it completed its transfer. Let's go. They made their way through the facility's maintenance corridors, guided by Liz's hastily provided directions. The alarm continued to sound, but they encountered no resistance until they reached the final approach to the hangar bay. A security checkpoint blocked their path, manned by 4 guards in full tactical gear. Beyond them, Jace could see their ship, apparently unharmed, but surrounded by scanning equipment. Ideas, he murmured to Serenia. She studied the situation, then reached into her pocket and produced what looked like a small, silver sphere. Sonic disruptor, she explained quietly. It will temporarily disable their neural interfaces, but it will also alert everyone else in the facility to our location. So we'll need to be quick. Very. She handed him the sphere. You have better aim than I do. Jace weighed the device in his hand, calculating angles and timing. On 3, 1, 2. Before he could say 3, the hangar erupted in chaos. The guards at the checkpoint suddenly collapsed, and a familiar mechanical voice echoed through the space. Extraction complete. Facility security. Protocols compromised. Query: is this sufficient distraction? Milo? Jace called out in disbelief. The small maintenance bot emerged from behind a stack of cargo containers, trailing severed wires, and what appeared to be fragments of the facility's security system. Affirmative. Analysis indicated high probability of capture. Countermeasures implemented. Your robot hacked a military-grade security system? Serenia asked, clearly impressed. He's full of surprises, Jace replied, already moving toward the ship. Let's not waste his efforts. They raced across the hangar floor, reaching the vessel without further resistance. Once inside, Jace immediately began the launch sequence, while Serenia secured the data they'd acquired. How did you do that? Jace asked, as Milo trundled up the boarding ramp. Repair protocols include analysis of all connected systems. Facility networks were primitive by comparison to quantum entanglement drives. You continue to surprise me, little friend, Serenia said with genuine warmth. The ship's engines roared to life, and Jace guided them away from the docking clamps. Alarms blared throughout the hangar as emergency protocols activated. But too late. They were already accelerating toward the massive bay doors. Those doors are sealed, Serenia noted tensely. Not for long, Jace replied, activating the ship's forward weapons. The energy beam that erupted from their vessel was far more powerful than standard civilian armaments should have been, slicing through the hangar doors with surgical precision. I thought you said this was a civilian ship, Jace remarked, as they shot through the opening and into Terulia's atmosphere. I said it was modified for civilian use, Serenia corrected with a small smile. I never said all the modifications were legal. They climbed rapidly through the atmosphere, sensors indicating pursuit craft, launching from various points across the planet's surface. We need to get to the vault, Serenia said urgently, before the Lattice realizes what we've discovered. And where exactly is this vault? In the dead zone of the Netherspire Belt, a place the Lattice avoids because their neural networks don't function there. Jace frowned. Nothing functions in the Netherspire. It's a graveyard of ships and stations. Not quite nothing, Serenia replied mysteriously. The vault was built there precisely because conventional technology fails. It relies on systems that predate neural networks, systems the Lattice can't control or corrupt. As they broke free of Terulia's gravity well, the quantum drive hummed to life, preparing for the jump to deep space. Behind them, the pursuit vessels were falling behind, unable to match their advanced propulsion. Setting course for the Netherspire Belt, Jace announced, inputting the coordinates Serenia provided. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. That should give us time to prepare, Serenia said, her expression growing serious. The vault's security systems are unique. They'll test more than just our identities. What does that mean? She hesitated, as if choosing her words carefully. The vault was designed to ensure that only those with the right intentions could access its contents. It doesn't just scan biometrics or credentials. It evaluates honesty, integrity, purpose. It reads minds, Jace asked skeptically. In a manner of speaking, it was created during a time when neural manipulation was in its infancy. The founders wanted to ensure that even if someone was coerced or their mind altered, the vault would know. That's not possible. No technology can truly determine someone's intentions. This isn't just technology, Jace. It's something else. Something that blurs the line between science and something more fundamental. Serenia's violet eyes held his. The vault doesn't just store information. It preserves truth in its purest form. The earnestness in her voice gave Jace pause. Despite his skepticism, he found himself wanting to believe her, wanting to believe that in this galaxy of manipulation and control, something pure and untainted might still exist. Get some rest, he suggested, setting the autopilot. We've got a long journey ahead, and something tells me we'll need our strength when we arrive. Serenia nodded, rising from her seat. As she passed him, she placed a hand lightly on his shoulder. Thank you, Jace, for believing in me enough to be here." "I never said I believed in you," he replied, though without any real conviction. Her smile suggested she knew better. "You didn't have to." The Netherspire Belt lived up to its ominous reputation. A vast ring of derelict ships, abandoned stations, and debris fields surrounded a region of space where normal physical laws seemed to waver. Sensors returned contradictory readings. Navigation systems stuttered and failed, and the quantum drive emitted a disconcerting whine as they approached. "Switching to manual control," Jace announced, disengaging the increasingly erratic autopilot. "Where exactly in this mess are we headed?" Serenia leaned forward, studying the chaotic vista before them. "There," she said, pointing to what appeared to be just another piece of space debris, a tumbling, irregular shape barely distinguishable from the surrounding detritus. "That's the vault? It looks like a chunk of dead station." "That's the point. The best way to hide something valuable is to make it look worthless." As they drew closer, Jace began to see subtle differences between the object Serenia had indicated and the surrounding debris. Its movements weren't quite random. There was a pattern to its rotation that suggested deliberate control rather than the chaotic tumbling of truly abandoned objects. "How do we dock with something spinning like that?" he asked. "We don't," Serenia replied. "Not conventionally, at least." She accessed a secure panel on her control console and entered a complex sequence. "Transmitting recognition codes now." For several moments, nothing happened. Then, abruptly, the tumbling object stabilized. A section of what had appeared to be damaged hull plating slid aside, revealing a small docking port illuminated by soft blue lighting. "That's our invitation," Serenia said with evident relief. "Take us in slowly. The docking systems are ancient by modern standards." Jace guided their ship with precision, feeling the gentle bump as the magnetic clamps engaged and secured them to the hidden station. The docking tube extended automatically, creating a sealed pathway between their vessel and the vault. "Query," Milo interjected as they prepared to disembark. "Likelihood of survival in anomalous spatial zone?" "The vault is shielded from the Netherspire's effects," Serenia assured the robot. "You'll be fine as long as you stay inside." Calculating reassurance. Efficacy. Result. Marginally comforting. Jace smiled, despite the tension of the moment. "Stay with the ship. Milo, keep the engines ready for a quick departure if necessary." Affirmative. Maintaining vigilance and existential dread. The docking tube led them into a circular chamber that seemed to defy the station's external appearance. While the outside had suggested decay and abandonment, the interior was pristine. Walls of a material that resembled polished obsidian, illuminated by recessed lighting that seemed to have no discernible source. "Welcome to the primary data vault," Serenia said softly, her voice carrying a note of reverence. "The true repository of human knowledge and history." Jace turned slowly, taking in the strange architecture. There were no visible controls, no interfaces or terminals, just the smooth black surfaces reflecting their images like dark mirrors. "How do we access anything in here?" In answer, Serenia approached the center of the chamber and placed her palm against the floor. Immediately, the surface beneath her hand illuminated, lines of light spreading outward in intricate patterns. "Veil genetic signature recognized," announced a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Primary authentication accepted." The patterns of light continued to spread until they covered the entire floor and began climbing the walls. The chamber was transformed into a dazzling display of interconnected data streams, flowing and merging in complex ways that somehow suggested meaning beyond mere visual patterns. "Secondary authentication required," the disembodied voice continued. "Bonded partner verification protocol initiated." A section of the floor before Jace illuminated more brightly than the rest, clearly indicating where he should stand. "What do I need to do?" he asked Serenia. "Just be yourself," she replied cryptically. The vault will do the rest. With a mixture of skepticism and resignation, Jace stepped onto the illuminated section. Immediately, the light intensified, and he felt a strange sensation, as if the very air around him had become charged with potential. Subject: Jace Colburn, the voice announced. Former Terran Defense Force, veteran of the Proxima conflict. Current status: disavowed. Jace tensed at the word disavowed. It was technically accurate. He had removed his neural implants against direct orders, effectively severing his connection to the military hierarchy, but it carried connotations of dishonor he'd never fully accepted. Analyzing bonding parameters, the voice continued. Technical accord ritual confirmed. Sincerity evaluation in progress. The light beneath Jace's feet seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat, creating an unsettling sense of connection between himself and the station. What exactly is it evaluating? He murmured to Serenia. Whether you truly meant what you said when you fixed my ship, she replied quietly. Whether your gesture of goodwill was genuine or calculated. Before Jace could respond, the voice spoke again. Anomaly detected. Subject has undergone neural implant removal. Memory structures show evidence of attempted suppression. Jace frowned. What does that mean? It means, Serenia said slowly, that someone has tried to alter your memories. That's impossible. I would know if... Not if it was done well, she interrupted gently. The lattice has been perfecting the technique for decades. The light beneath Jace intensified further, becoming almost uncomfortable in its brightness. Images began to flash through his mind. Fragments of memory from the Proxima conflict, the station, the explosion, the aftermath. But something was wrong. The sequence of events didn't match what he remembered. Memory reconciliation required for full authentication, the voice announced. Proceed. Serenia moved closer to him, concern evident in her expression. This is unexpected. The vault wants to restore your true memories, the ones that were altered. And if I say no, then we can't access the core data. But Jace, she hesitated. Whatever they changed, they did it for a reason. It might be important. Jace closed his eyes, feeling a mixture of fear and resolve. For 7 years, he'd been running from his past. Perhaps it was time to face it, even if it wasn't the past he remembered. Proceed, he said firmly. The chamber around them seemed to dissolve, replaced by a perfect recreation of Proxima Station as it had existed before its destruction. Jace recognized the command center, the military personnel moving with purpose, the tension in the air that preceded major operations. This isn't just a visual simulation, Serenia explained, her voice seeming to come from both beside him and somehow within his mind. The vault is reconstructing the actual events from unaltered data records, synchronized with your memory patterns. Jace watched as a younger version of himself entered the command center, reporting to a senior officer he recognized as Admiral Verna. The conversation was one he remembered, a final briefing before the operation to secure the station's quantum core. But then, things began to diverge from his recollection. In Jace's memory, a Lattice representative had arrived to oversee the operation, standard procedure for sensitive technology. In this reconstruction, however, an entire Lattice security team took control of the station, overriding military protocols despite Admiral Verna's protests. This isn't right, Jace muttered. That's not how it happened. Watch, Serenia urged gently. The scene shifted to the quantum core chamber. In Jace's altered memories, a technical malfunction had led to catastrophic failure. But in this reconstruction, he watched as Lattice operatives deliberately modified the core's containment protocols, creating the conditions for the eventual explosion. They sabotaged it, he whispered in horror. Why would they destroy their own station? The answer came in the form of a conversation between Lattice officials that the younger Jace had apparently overheard, a conversation missing entirely from his current memories. The Proxima research must not continue, one official stated coldly. Their quantum consciousness experiments threaten the entire lattice control system. Better to lose one station than risk developing technology that could render neural interfaces obsolete. And the personnel? Another asked. Acceptable losses. The survivors will be processed for memory adjustment. Jace watched, sickened, as his younger self attempted to warn Admiral Verna, only to be captured by lattice security before he could reach her. He saw himself subjected to a crude but effective memory alteration procedure before being evacuated from the station, minutes before the explosion that would kill thousands. The simulation faded, returning them to the vault chamber. Jace stood motionless, his mind reeling as the artificial memories he'd carried for years crumbled away, replaced by the horrifying truth. "They murdered them," he said hoarsely. "All of them. And made me believe it was an accident." Serenya's hand found his, her touch grounding him in the present. The lattice has been erasing inconvenient truths for generations. What happened at Proxima was just one example. "Authentication complete," the vault's voice announced. "Memory reconciliation successful. Full access granted to primary and secondary archives." The chamber transformed again, this time into a vast repository of data displays. Information surrounded them in three-dimensional projections: historical records, scientific discoveries, cultural artifacts spanning centuries of human development. "This is what they've been hiding," Serenya said, releasing Jace's hand to interact with the displays. Not just individual incidents like Proxima, but entire branches of human knowledge and development. Still shaken by the revelation of his true memories, Jace forced himself to focus on the task at hand. "How do we use this to stop them? We can't exactly download the entire vault." "We don't need to," Serenya replied, navigating through the data with practiced ease. "What we need is proof of systematic manipulation, evidence that the lattice has been deliberately altering humanity's course for their own purposes." She located a specific section of the archives, bringing forward records of something called Operation Continuous Present. "This is it," she said, her voice tight with suppressed emotion. "The master protocol for information control across all connected systems. It outlines exactly how they select which parts of history to preserve, which to alter, and which to erase completely." Jace examined the data, his military training helping him recognize the systematic nature of the operation. This isn't just censorship. It's engineering, social engineering on a galactic scale. "Precisely. And it goes beyond merely controlling information." Serenya pulled up another file. "This is the neurological component, the protocols for subtle influence through neural interfaces. They're not just hiding the truth. They're actively shaping how people think about the information they do have access to." "How do we fight something this pervasive?" Serenya's expression was grim, but determined. "By doing exactly what the lattice fears most, releasing the truth in a way they can't control or contain." She accessed a secure section of the archives, retrieving what appeared to be encryption codes and transmission protocols. The Veil Consortium still maintains independent communication networks across key trading hubs. If we can transmit this data through those channels, embedding it in standard commercial transactions, every financial exchange would carry a fragment of the truth, Jace finished, catching her strategy. Distributed data that reassembles itself when enough fragments collect in one system. Exactly. The lattice can't shut down galactic commerce without collapsing their own power structure. As they worked to prepare the data for transmission, a warning alert suddenly pulsed through the chamber. "Proximity alert," the vault's voice announced. "Multiple vessels detected entering the Netherspire belt. Configuration matches lattice enforcement craft." "How did they find us?" Jace demanded. "They must have tracked our quantum signature from Terulia somehow." Serenya's fingers moved rapidly across the data interfaces. "We need more time to complete the transmission preparation." Jace made a quick decision. "I'll hold them off. Get that data ready." "Jace, you can't." "I was a Terran Defense Force tactical officer before I was a mechanic," he reminded her with a grim smile. And now I remember all my training perfectly. She held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded. The vault has defensive systems, but they're ancient. You can access them through the primary interface in the docking chamber. I'll make it work. He turned to leave, then hesitated. Serenia, when this is over, assuming we survive. Yes. We should talk about this whole betrothal thing, properly. Her smile was unexpected, but genuine. I look forward to it. The vault's defensive systems were indeed ancient, but they were also ingeniously designed. Rather than conventional weapons, they utilized the Netherspire's natural anomalies, amplifying and directing the spatial distortions to disrupt approaching vessels. From the control interface, Jace could see the lattice ships, 5 sleek combat cruisers designed for precision enforcement operations. They were advancing cautiously, clearly aware of the Netherspire's dangers, but determined to reach their target. Milo, Jace called through the communication link. Status report. Engines, ready for immediate departure. Observation. Hostile vessels appear exceptionally well armed for a peaceful information management organization. They've never been about peace, Jace replied grimly. Stand by for emergency protocols. He activated the vault's defense grid, targeting the lead lattice vessel. A pulse of distorted space-time erupted from the station, catching the cruiser and causing its hull to momentarily phase in and out of normal space. The ship's systems failed catastrophically, leaving it dead in space. The remaining cruisers immediately altered their approach, spreading out to present more difficult targets. They began returning fire, energy weapons dissipating harmlessly against the vault's unique shielding. They can't hurt the station, Jace realized. They're trying to establish a blockade, trap us here until reinforcements arrive. He redirected the defensive systems, creating a pattern of spatial distortions that would make approach from any direction hazardous. It wouldn't stop a determined assault force, but it would buy them time. Serenia, he called through the internal communication system. How much longer? Almost ready, her voice replied. The transmission package is prepared, but we need to be closer to a major trade hub to ensure proper distribution. We'll have to break through their blockade. Working on it. Jace studied the tactical display, formulating a plan. The lattice ships were maintaining position at the edge of the vault's defensive range, clearly waiting for something. That something arrived moments later. A massive vessel unlike the enforcement cruisers. Its design was oddly organic, with sections that seemed to pulse and shift like living tissue. What the hell is that? Jace muttered. Analysis suggests prototype, neural organic hybrid vessel. Milo supplied helpfully. Lattice, experimental technology. Probability of survival if engaged. Approximately 12.7%. Thanks for the encouraging statistics, Jace replied dryly. The new vessel emitted a pulse of energy, unlike anything Jace had seen before. Where it touched the Netherspire's distortions, they seemed to stabilize, creating a safe corridor through the dangerous region. They're neutralizing the spatial anomalies, Jace realized with growing alarm. The vault's main defense. Jace! Serenia's voice came urgently through the communication system. We need to leave now. I've got the data package ready for transmission. On my way. He set the defensive systems to automatic targeting and raced back through the station to the central chamber. Serenia was already there, a small data crystal clutched in her hand. That ship out there, Jace said as they hurried toward the docking tube. It's using some kind of technology that negates the Netherspire's effects. The Apex vessel, Serenia replied grimly. It's been theoretical until now. A ship designed to house the central node of the lattice consciousness. If they've actually built it, then they're more desperate than we thought, Jace finished. Which means what we've found is even more important than you realized. They reached their ship and quickly boarded, Milo already having prepared the engines for immediate departure. Recommendation: rapid strategic withdrawal. Couldn't agree more, Jace replied, taking the pilot's seat. Disengaging docking clamps. As their ship separated from the vault, the massive lattice vessel fired again, not at them, but at the station itself. The energy beams seemed to pass through the vault's defenses, as if they didn't exist, striking the ancient structure directly. "No!" Serenia cried out as sections of the station began to crumble. "They're destroying it," Jace realized, erasing the evidence. He pushed their ship to maximum acceleration, heading directly for the corridor of stabilized space the lattice vessel had created. It was their only chance of escape, directly past the enemy's most powerful weapon. "They'll intercept us," Serenia warned. "Not if we move fast enough." Jace activated the ship's quantum drive, despite all safety protocols warning against using it within the nether spire. "Hold on!" The drive engaged with a violent surge that nearly tore the ship apart. Space distorted around them as they accelerated directly toward the apex vessel. For a critical moment, the massive ship seemed frozen in surprise, its weapons not tracking their suicidal approach. Then they were past it, shooting through the stabilized corridor and out of the nether spire belt. Emergency warnings blared throughout the cockpit as the quantum drive struggled to maintain coherence after the dangerous maneuver. "Drive stability at 42%, Serenia reported, her fingers dancing across the control panels. "We can make one jump, maybe two, before it fails completely." "That's all we need," Jace replied. "Set course for the nearest major trade hub, Araxo Station." As they prepared for the jump, a final transmission came through from the vault's automated systems, a message accompanied by a massive data transfer that flooded their ship's storage capacity. "Emergency archive protocol activated," announced the familiar voice of the vault. "Primary data preservation initiative commencing. Custodial authority transferred to Serenia Vale and bonded partner." "It's downloading itself to our ship," Serenia whispered in awe. "The vault is preserving its contents through us." The quantum drive engaged, hurling them across light years toward Araxo Station, and toward the moment of truth that would determine whether their desperate mission would succeed or fail. Araxo Station was a sprawling commercial hub, home to thousands of trading companies and millions of daily financial transactions. Its massive central spire housed the Galactic Commerce Authority, which regulated and recorded every legitimate business dealing across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. It was the perfect place to distribute information that needed to reach as many systems as possible, as quickly as possible. Their ship, now operating on emergency power after the strain of their escape, limped into a peripheral docking bay. The quantum drive had failed completely shortly after their arrival in the Araxo system, leaving them with only conventional propulsion. "We need to move quickly," Serenia said as they prepared to disembark. "The lattice will have alerted all major hubs to watch for us." "What's the plan?" Jace asked, checking the small energy pistol he'd found in the ship's security locker. Not much protection against lattice enforcers, but better than nothing. "The Commerce Authority maintains a central transaction verification node. If we can access it and upload our data package, it will be automatically embedded in every financial exchange processed through Araxos." She held up the data crystal. One upload, millions of transactions, billions of data fragments spreading across the galaxy with every credit transfer.